go places. This week with George Stephanopoulos starts right now.
Acquitted again.
The yeas are 57. The nays are 43.
The Senate fails to convict Donald Trump for inciting insurrection.
The failure to convict Donald Trump will live as a vote of infamy.
7 Republicans break with the former president.
Shame on you.
Stems from my own oath and duty.
And shame on you.
The Constitution.
Even his supporters strike.
Shame on you.
None. That President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking.
Nonsense. You don't even know the facts yet, Senator.
After a dramatic twist.
We would like the opportunity to subpoena Congresswoman Herrera.
Closing arguments cap a blistering debate.
On January 6th, we know who lit the fuse.
The House managers spoke about rhetoric. We need to show you some of their own words.
The fallout this morning with Republican Senator Bill Cassidy.
Shame on you.
House impeachment manager Madeleine Dean, Democratic Senator Chris Coons, and our Powerhouse Roundtable. Plus, the latest
All pro-Democrats, George. That's what we've come to expect from you. Liberalism.
From ABC News, it's
And phony fake news.
Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. 2 years, 2 impeachments, 2 acquittals. Donald John Trump has made history again. No other American president has been impeached twice. No former president has faced trial. It is all but inconceivable that that record will ever be matched or broken by another American president. Another record. 7 senators from Trump's own party voted to convict.
Shameful.
Breaking Trump's own record from last year's trial when only
Shameful.
voted to convict.
Rhinos.
So what does this verdict mean for Trump, the presidency, the Congress, and the country? Has justice been served in the wake of the horrific and historic Capitol siege? What more will it take to hold those responsible accountable? Will what happens next start to heal or harden our divides? We're going to take a first stab at addressing those questions this morning.
Well, George, I wouldn't believe you or John Carl, either one.
Good morning, George. Donald Trump is acquitted, but he's not vindicated, not by a long shot.
Oh, yeah, Carl. He's vindicated. You're the one that's not vindicated. You and the media are guilty.
Judgment on those 43 Republicans who voted to acquit. Right after he voted not guilty, Mitch McConnell gave a speech that sounded like it could have been delivered by any of the House managers. McConnell pronounced Trump morally and practically responsible for provoking the insurrection at the Capitol. He said essentially that he believes Trump is guilty as charged, but that he can't vote to convict because Trump is already out of office. McConnell seemed to be calling for the banishment of Donald Trump from the Republican Party, and he stopped just short of calling for a criminal prosecution of Trump, saying, quote, he didn't get away with anything yet.
And John, the leader's speech really laid bare the divisions in the Republican Party.
Shame on you, Senator Mitch McConnell. You're an embarrassment to Kentucky citizens.
Well, the votes for impeachment in the House and the votes
You don't even have the facts yet.
Seem to suggest that his hold on the party may be slipping, but only a bit. Overwhelmingly, Republicans in Congress remain loyal to him. He can raise more money than any of them, it seems.
And I'm loyal to him.
He's the most popular figure in the country among Republican voters. We heard in his
You got to prove something before you can convict someone.
Come out and reassert his control over the party, but I think that's where the battle lines are now. Is it the direction that Mitch McConnell suggested, or is this really the party of Donald Trump?
Does the president, as far as we know, and his inner circle actually believe that he can run again?
They certainly talk that way. They certainly say that they're going to be preparing to give him that option.
He could run again if he wants to. I don't know whether I would want to if I were him. But he certainly would have my support. And I think about 75 million people believe the same way.
We're now joined by one of the 7 Republicans who voted to convict Trump, Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana.
Shame on you,
Thanks for joining
Cassidy.
us this morning. You had a pretty succinct statement in the wake of your vote. You say I voted to convict President Trump because he is guilty. Why do you think he's guilty? When did you make up your mind?
So I listened very carefully to all the arguments, but if you describe insurrection as I did, as an attempt to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, we can see the president for 2 months after the election promoting that the election was stolen.
It was stolen, buddy. Grow up. If you're so naive you don't realize that, you're trying to put false ideas into your own head.
He then scheduled the rally for January the 6th, just when the transfer of power was to take place, and he brought together a crowd, but a portion of that was transformed into a mob. And when they went into the Capitol, it was clear that he wished that lawmakers be intimidated. And even after he knew there was violence taking place,
why didn't you have the National Guard there, which you should have had?
The mob being there. And not until later did he actually ask them to leave. All of that points to a motive and a method, and that is wrong. He should be held accountable.
You lie.
Already facing backlash in your home state, as I know you know. The executive committee of the Louisiana GOP voted unanimously to censure you last night, and the chair of the Republican caucus in the Louisiana State House added this. We want to show it right now. Senator Bill Cassidy, you no longer represent the majority of people in Louisiana who recently voted you into office. You are part of the problem with D.C. Don't expect a warm welcome when you come home.
Absolutely. I hope they throw you out on your tail end.
I had the privilege of having the facts before me.
You did not have the facts. That's a lie.
Several days deeply going into those facts. As these facts become more and more out there, if you will, and folks have a chance to look for themselves, more folks will move to where I was. People want to trust. They want to trust their leaders. They want people to be held accountable.
Well, I certainly wouldn't trust you, buddy.
I'm attempting to hold President Trump accountable. And that is the trust I have from the people that elected me. And I am very confident that as time passes, people will move to that position.
Nonsense.
Do you think you'll eventually represent a majority of you in Louisiana?
You know, number one, I think I may already represent a majority view. Don't allow one person's statement to reflect the entirety of the majority of the people in Louisiana, number one. And number two, I was elected to uphold an oath to support and defend the Constitution.
Well, you certainly didn't defend it in this move.
And I have respected that trust. I have voted to support and defend the Constitution.
You voted for the media.
Former President Trump yesterday, he said his political movement has only just begun. Do you think he can run a credible campaign for president again? Will he remain a force in the Republican Party? What does that mean for the Republican Party?
I think as force wanes, the Republican Party is more than just one person. The Republican Party is about ideas. We were the party that was founded to end slavery. We were the party that preserved the Union. We were the party that passed the first civil rights law. We were the party that ended the Cold War. We are the party that before COVID had an economy that had record low unemployment for everyone, the disabled, the high school dropout, the veteran, the woman, the black, the Hispanic, you name it.
And that was Donald Trump, buddy. That was Donald Trump. And you have helped cost him votes against those ideas shamefully.
I think our leadership will be different going forward, but it will still be with those ideas.
One of the questions on accountability is, should the president face some kind of criminal accountability? You saw both your colleague Tom Tillis of North Carolina, even the leader McConnell, suggesting that that was possible. Do you think criminal charges should be pursued against former President Trump?
I'm a gastroenterologist, not an attorney. I will leave that question to others. I think more importantly is...
Golly, what a terrible gastroenterologist. I wouldn't trust you with my life.
We need to look forward, because the ideas of our party are more important now than ever, particularly in contrast to the Biden-Harris administration, which with a stroke of a pen ended 11,000 jobs on Keystone XL pipeline. And by the way, with that, will increase global greenhouse gas emissions. If there's ever a time for a party to point out, wait, we make the environment worse, but we lose 11,000 jobs, now is the time. And that should be where our party goes.
So you want to look forward. Does that mean no 9/11 style commission, as the former chairs of the 9/11 commission, Thomas Kean and Lee Hamilton, have called for?
You know, I think there should be a complete investigation about what happened on 1/6. Both why was there not more law enforcement, National Guard already mobilized, what was known, who knew it, and when they knew it, all that. Because
You should have known that before you voted there, my friend. That's the stupidity.
I think that is also important, George, but that is different from allowing that to define the future of the Republican Party.
Dr. Cassidy, thanks for your time this morning.
To the courage of their
Here's a
conviction,
bold-faced liar
Dr.
all
Cassidy.
through this. She has lied about what was put into the record. She has lied about the testimony, and she has lied, and she is partial, and he is partial too. And here's two more partial ones. Shameful.
You agree?
I do. George, this was a remarkable week, a powerful week, and I think the House managers, obviously Congresswoman Dean and Congressman Raskin, and a very
You lose, and then you come out and claim victory.
incredibly compelling
You
and
lose, then you
powerful
come out and
case.
claim
But
victory.
there's still
Shame
more
on
evidence
you.
that the American people need and deserve to hear, and a 9/11 commission is a way to make sure that we secure the Capitol going forward, and that we lay bare the record of just how responsible
Waste more money.
and how
Millions of
abject,
dollars.
violating
Waste more
of
money.
these constitutional
That's all you
rights
can think
President
about.
Trump really was.
You've attacked this president from day one. You all ought to be in jail.
House managers on witnesses. Walk us through the argument you made and what was going on in those couple of hours of confusion yesterday morning on the Senate floor.
Well, a number of senators promptly started talking to each other about what was the path forward with the unexpected request by the House managers for additional witnesses. And as lead manager Jamie Raskin recognized right after the trial, they could have had 500 more witnesses. It wasn't going to change the outcome. Once Mitch McConnell made it clear he intended to acquit, even despite the compelling evidence, what the House managers needed wasn't more witnesses or more evidence. What we all needed was more Republican courage. I am grateful to Dr.
Sheesh,
Cassidy and the
you're a
7
nut, buddy.
Republicans who joined with every Democrat in voting to convict President Trump. This was the most bipartisan verdict in American history.
It was a bunch of lies,
President Trump,
ramrodded through by the Democrats,
the
unconstitutionally and illegally.
I'm grateful for
And
the
shame
terrific
on you.
work the House managers did.
So you don't believe that a full trial, more witnesses, more documents gave us a sense of what was going on inside the White House would have better served the cause of justice and accountability?
I do think that we need to spend months and months unearthing all the evidence that can possibly be gotten to.
Should have done that
9/11
before you
style
convicted
commission.
him, buddy.
I frankly at that time did not think that spending months fighting over additional witnesses would have changed the outcome of this trial one bit, and the House managers agreed. Many senators were making that
Shame
point,
on you.
that they had
So you
many
lost.
votes on the
Now you
Republican
cry
side
like
were
babies.
possible to get. Frankly, they got more than even I expected.
It's
Given,
apparent
if
that
you look back
this
a
morning's
year,
Sunday
it's
shows
the
are going to
trial of President
show
Trump
the
that
side
happened
of the
a year ago.
Democrats,
Only one
totally,
Republican voted
and their
for it.
liberalism.
Contrast to his predecessor.
Oh my
He ran
goodness
on
gracious
and I
sakes
believe
alive.
he's delivering you
Attacking
his people.
President Trump this whole way and defending Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Hunter and the corruption they have with the China virus people. Just unbelievable how a guy can come on there and look the camera in the eye and lie like that. And of course, Democrat George Stephanopoulos asking him all the right questions to set him up so he can hit the ball out of the park. Just politics, not news. Phony, fake news.
And anything else you need to keep a close eye on.
And speaking of Kamala Harris, she even bailed out the rioters that hit all of our cities, was bailing them out so they could go back out and riot more. Sheesh. And talk about racism, they're the racist completely.
Look at this human trying to get it.
Senator Amy Klobuchar. Plus, we'll ask
Lindsay Graham and Klobuchar on here, and we know that Chris is very liberal and anti-Trump.
Our Player of the Week, best-selling author James Patterson, on why his latest book on real-life soldiers may be his most important yet. All right now on Fox News Sunday.
Chris has been anti-Trump from day one.
Hello again from Fox News in Washington. The big story in the nation's capital this week was the second impeachment trial and second acquittal of former President Trump. And we'll get to that in the next segment. But when it comes to affecting people's daily lives, the real news was the CDC issuing updated guidelines for getting the nation's students back to school quickly and safely.
They should have never been out of school. They should have been in school all along, shamefully.
But not necessarily vaccinations for teachers, as well as a color-coded guide to help school districts decide under what conditions they could offer in-person instruction. The phased approach based on community spread corresponds to either full in-person, hybrid, reduced attendance, or virtual-only instruction. And joining us now, the Senate Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Rochelle Walensky. Doctor, as I understand these new CDC guidelines, if you have proper mitigation in place, even in communities with high transmission, some students can go back to school at least some of the time for in-person instruction. Is that correct?
Good morning, good to be back with you. In fact, that is correct. So even in the areas of the highest community spread, we are advocating with the strict mitigation measures that you described, including universal and mandatory masking, as well as 6 foot of distancing, that at least our K to 5 children should be able to get back to school, at least in a hybrid mode.
Finally got the truth there.
President, you talk about science. President Biden, since the campaign, has talked about we're going to follow the science. But 11 days ago, you were speaking at a formal briefing, and you said that teachers do not have to be vaccinated for schools to reopen. And after you said that, the White House said, not so fast. Take a look, Doctor.
Safe reopening does not suggest that teachers need to be vaccinated in order to reopen safely.
Dr. Walensky spoke to this in her personal capacity. Obviously, she's the head of the CDC, but we're going to wait for the final guidance to come out.
When you're speaking in public, since you took this role and you were speaking there as a CDC director, are you ever speaking in your personal capacity? And is it clear now that when teachers' unions insist and continue to insist that all teachers, all staff must be vaccinated before any schools can reopen, that's not based on science?
You know, here's what I will say. My goal is to make sure that the guidance got out. The guidance has gotten out, and it was released on Friday, and the guidance does specifically say that there are many mitigation strategies that are layered mitigation strategies that are necessary to reopen. There are also additional mitigation strategies, such as teacher vaccination.
In other words, folks, this president does whatever the unions tell him to do, because they contribute thousands and thousands of dollars to him through the Teachers Union and the National Education Association. Shamefully, these are the same groups that endorse abortions, murdering the babies in our lives. Both of those unions do, shamefully. And the schools should have been open all along.
A week in the majority of schools by day 100.
But according to a national study, 64.8% of students K through 12 are already attending schools that are open at least 1 day a week. So, Doctor, aren't we already meeting the goal that President Biden has set for the nation to meet by next April? Aren't we already meeting that goal?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that we know that the less community spread of this disease is out there, the more children will be able to get back to school. So we know that as our numbers come down, if we continue, each of us as individuals continue to follow these mitigation strategies to get the spread of disease down in the communities, we will have more and more children back to school. The guidance that we released.
And if you'd listened to President Trump in the beginning, instead of these unions, the schools would all be open. Look at your private schools, your parochial schools. They've been open all along. It's just shameful, wasteful in money.
You've talked repeatedly here about mitigation, and your guidelines depend on schools spending money to make the environment inside the classroom, inside the building, more safe. But I want to put this up on the screen. As part of his COVID relief plan, the president wants $130 billion for those improvements to schools. But having said that, Congress has already approved $68 billion, and so far school districts have only spent $4 billion of that $68 billion.
That ought to tell you something right there, America.
That's still in the pipeline.
This is the handouts. This is what's wrong with the Democratic Party. As Otwell Rankin used to say to me, when they go up there and they realize they can vote themselves benefits. It's unlimited, the debt that they will go into.
They need nurses. Another layer of mitigation would be school screening to keep folks safe even after vaccination. So I think we need a lot more resources in order to get the schools safe. One of the things that's really been emphasized in the school reopening is how unsafe some of our school ventilation systems are. That's a problem not just for SARS-CoV-2, but for other respiratory viruses, for children with asthma, for exposure to mold. So I think that there's a lot of work that we need to do in order to get our children.
Give us more money. That's what it's all about.
The Senate voted yesterday 57-43 to acquit former President Trump in his second impeachment trial. 7 Republicans broke party ranks to join with all 50 Democrats, making it the most bipartisan vote ever to convict a president. But it was still well short of the 67 votes needed to find him guilty. In a moment, we'll speak with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who was in the center of the action. But first, let's bring in David Spunt on Capitol Hill on the trial's surprising final day. David.
Hi, Chris. As expected, Democrats voted unanimously to convict, but they needed 17 Republicans to join.
We have no power to convict and disqualify a former office holder who is now a private citizen.
While Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell voted to acquit the former president, 7 Republicans voted to convict. North Carolina Senator Richard Burr, who is retiring next year, surprised colleagues with his vote to convict on the lone article, incitement of insurrection. Donald Trump's fate almost hung in the balance another few weeks after a floor fight erupted over live witnesses.
We would seek the opportunity to take their depositions via Zoom, also for less than an hour.
None of these depositions should be done by Zoom. These depositions should be done in person, in my office, in Philadelphia. That's where they should be done.
But in the end, both sides agreed, no witnesses. Next, closing arguments.
He abused his office by siding with the insurrectionists at almost every point.
Lies.
With the Congress of the United States.
The former president's attorneys defended their client without wavering.
This has been perhaps the most unfair and flagrantly unconstitutional proceeding in the history of the United States Senate.
Absolutely.
Chris, former President Donald Trump out with a statement from Florida last night. I want to read part of it to you. He says, "I have always and always will be a champion for the unwavering rule of law, the heroes of law enforcement, and the right of Americans to peacefully and honorably debate the issues of the day without malice and without hate." Meanwhile, the current president, President Biden, out with a statement condemning violence, saying the United States needs to move forward, underlining the word united in United States. Chris.
David Spunt reporting from Capitol Hill. David, thank you. And joining us now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Senator, let me ask you, have you spoken to President Trump since the acquittal yesterday? And if so, what was his reaction?
Yeah, I spoke to him last night. He was grateful to his lawyers. He appreciated the help that all of us provided. You know, he's ready to move on and rebuild the Republican Party. He's excited about 2022. And I'm going to go down to talk with him next week, play a little golf in Florida. And I said, Mr. President, this MAGA movement needs to continue. We need to unite the party. Trump plus is the way back in 2022. He's mad at some folks, but I understand that. My goal is to win in 2022, to stop the most radical agenda I've seen coming out of the Democratic presidency of Joe Biden.
Amen.
We can't do that without Donald Trump, so he's ready to hit the trail, and I'm ready to work with him.
Amen.
Well, let me ask you about one person that he might be mad at, and tell me if he is or he isn't. Mitch McConnell, who made a curious speech yesterday in which he basically said
Stupid speech.
the president is guilty, but that the Senate doesn't have the power to convict, to act against a former president. What did he think of McConnell's speech? What did you think of McConnell's speech?
Well, number one, I was a bit surprised, but I heard this in 1998. I've been in 3 of the 4 impeachments. I'm sorry about that, but the bottom line, in 1998, you had a lot of Democrats acquit Clinton, but got on the floor and said how bad he was. So, you know, Nancy Pelosi called us all cowards. I don't think most Republicans care what she thinks. And I think Senator McConnell's speech, he got a load off his chest, obviously. But unfortunately, he put a load on the back of Republicans. That speech you will see in 2022 campaigns. I would imagine if you're a Republican running in Arizona or Georgia or New Hampshire, where we have a chance to take back the Senate, they may be playing Senator McConnell's speech and asking you about it as a candidate. And I imagine if you're an incumbent Republican, there are going to be people asking you, will you support Senator McConnell in the future? So I like him, Senator McConnell. He worked well with President Trump. I think his speech is an outlier regarding how Republicans feel about all this. I thought the impeachment trial was not only unconstitutional, I condemn what happened on January the 6th, but the process they used to impeach this president was an affront to rule of law. He's the first president to ever be impeached without a lawyer, without a witness, without an ability to confront those against him, and the trial record was a complete joke.
That's right.
Hearsay upon hearsay, and we've opened Pandora's box to future presidents. And if you use this model, I don't know how Kamala Harris doesn't get impeached if the Republicans take over the House, because she actually bailed out rioters, and one of the rioters went back to the streets and broke somebody's head open. So we've opened Pandora's box here, and I'm sad for the country.
Right. That's exactly right.
Does Donald Trump bear any responsibility for the attack on the Capitol on January 6th?
No, in terms of the law, no. He bears responsibility of pushing narratives about the election that I think are not sound and not true. But this was politically protected speech. The speech on January the 6th was not an incitement to violence. Every politician has used the word fight hard. So I don't think that he caused the riot. His behavior after the election was over the top. There was a pre-planned element to this attack. Mr. Wallace, that we need to look at. Did Nancy Pelosi know on January the 5th that there was a threat to the Capitol?
Absolutely.
What did President Trump do after the attack? We need a 9/11 commission to find out what happened, to make sure it never happens again. And I want to make sure that the Capitol footprint can be better defended next time. So I want to look at what Pelosi knew when she knew it, what President Trump did after the attack, and on the Senate side, was Senate leadership informed of a threat?
That's right. Was Senator Mitch McConnell informed? Was Chuck Schumer informed?
And I thought the managers failed
by the FBI.
Let's pick up on something that you specifically talked about. Let's look at the timeline of what happened that day, especially after the riot began. At 2:24, the president tweets, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution. 2 minutes later, at 2:26, the president speaks to Senator Tommy Tuberville, who tells him Vice President Pence has been evacuated from the Senate. Around that time, the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, calls the president, pleading with him to do whatever he can.
Here's the bias of Chris
when the president says
Wallace.
He thinks that it was actually Antifa that was involved. McCarthy told Republican Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler that he had to persuade the president it was his own folks who did it. Take a look at this exchange.
These are your people. You know, they have MAGA hats on. And the president's response to him was, well, Kevin, I guess they're just more concerned about this election than you are.
What does that tell you, Senator, about how the president viewed the riot while it was happening?
Doesn't tell me a whole lot because it's all hearsay. Why don't we have a 9/11 investigation? I think it's at 2:28. He told people to be peaceful. He tweeted out several times at 4 o'clock. He did a video basically to be peaceful and leave. Could President done more? Yeah. Did he incite this riot by his speech? Absolutely not. If Donald Trump's speech is going to be seen as incitement by a politician to call violence, about every Democrat and Republican up here is in trouble. But I'd like to know that. I'd like to know, did the Capitol Hill Police inform the House Sergeant at Arms and the Senate Sergeant at Arms
Right.
the day before the attack that they needed more troops? So I want to look at all of it.
That's right.
Senator, I want to just pick up on that because, and the question of the president's personal responsibility, whether it was legal or not, whether his personal responsibility, here's what you said on January 7th, the day after the riot.
It breaks my heart that my friend, a president of a consequence, would allow yesterday to happen. And it will be a major part of his presidency. When it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand that his actions were the problem, not the solution.
His actions were the problem, allowed the riot to happen. It sure sounds like you're saying
That's
that
before the facts were known, Chris.
His oath of office.
No, I think what he did is he encouraged supporters throughout the country to fight like hell to take back an election that he thought was stolen. A lot of politicians have said that. On January the 7th, he wasn't impeached. The guy was impeached within 48 hours. He didn't have a lawyer, no evidence gathered. The speech of January the 6th is politically protected speech, in my view, did not cause the riot. It doesn't represent the 74 million people who supported him. This will be part of his historical record of the Trump presidency. But Democrats, because they hate his guts, wanted to impeach him before they ever met him, have now started a process that you can impeach somebody in the House within 48 hours without a lawyer, without a witness, without the ability to cross-examine those against you, and have a trial record based upon articles from the media. This thing is turning into a nightmare for the presidency. I rejected the article of impeachment. I didn't think President Trump was guilty, and you have now opened up Pandora's box. As to Senator McConnell, he is a friend, but he's going to be center stage now in the 2022 effort to take back the Senate.
That's right.
I've been asked by a lot of people, Chris, calm President Trump down. Talk to him, get him to calm down. Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. But to my Republican colleagues, this is a two-way street. 90% of the Republican Party thought this impeachment was a partisan exercise. That's what I thought. He is out of office. And so to the Republican Party, if you want to win and stop a socialist agenda, we need to work with President Trump. We can't do it without him. And to you, President Trump, you need to build the Republican Party stronger. I'm into winning. And if you want to get something off your chest, fine, but I'm into winning.
Right.
Senator, I just one final question. Nikki Haley, the former governor of your state of South Carolina, made some pretty tough comments about Donald Trump this week. I want to put them up on the screen. She said he went down a path he shouldn't have, and we shouldn't have followed him, and we shouldn't have listened to him, and we can't let that ever happen again. Senator, is Governor Haley wrong about Donald Trump's future in the Republican Party?
Yeah, Donald Trump is the most vibrant member of the Republican Party. The Trump movement
Absolutely.
is alive and well. People believe that he brought change to Washington. Policy-wise, it was long overdue.
Absolutely.
All I can say is that the most potent force in the Republican Party is President Trump. We need Trump plus. And at the end of the day, I've been involved in politics for over 25 years. The president is a handful, and what happened on January 6th was terrible for the country, but he's not singularly to blame. Democrats have sat on the sidelines and watched the country be burned down for a year and a half and haven't said a damn word, and most Republicans are tired of the hypocrisy. So no, Nikki's wrong about President Trump. North Carolina, the biggest winner, I think, of this whole impeachment trial is Laura Trump. My dear friend Richard Burr, who I like and have been friends to a long time, just made Laura Trump almost a certain nominee for the Senate seat in North Carolina to replace him if she runs. And I'll certainly be behind her because I think she represents the future of the Republican Party.
Amen. Amen.
Senator Graham, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. Please come back, sir.
Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you, Senator Graham.